Okay, let's get started. So, there's this core idea, right? Seeing comes before words.
Hmm.
It's like our first way of understanding the world, even before we can name anything. Think about, a baby recognizing someone.
Right, before they even know the word mom or dad. But that connection, seeing and knowing, it's never quite settled, is it?
Exactly. There's often this uh, gap between what we see and what we really get.
Like Magritte's paintings.
Yes, perfect example. The Key of Dreams.
Mhm.
Familiar things, totally wrong words next to them. It really highlights how weird that link between vision and meaning can be. Kind of unstable.
And what Magritte does so well there is show that the meaning isn't in the image itself inherently.
Mhm.
It's something we build using language, using the ideas we already have. That gap, it's not a flaw, it's just how we process
Right?
things.
And that's pretty much what we're diving into today. We're exploring John Berger's ways of seeing.
A hugely influential work.
Totally. It's basically our guide for figuring out how we look at images, especially art, but also just modern life, really.
And it started as a BBC TV series back in the 70s.
Yeah, not some dry academic text. The book itself has 7 essays, numbered, but you can read them in any order, which is interesting,
It is. And it's a mix of words and pictures. Some essays are only pictures.
which really hammers home his point, doesn't it? That seeing itself communicates.
Absolutely. It works on its own level, even though it's always interacting with language. And it feels so relevant now with, everything being so visual.
Definitely. So our mission today is to pull out Berger's main ideas, how our way of seeing isn't neutral.
No, it's shaped by, well, everything. What we know, what we believe, our history,
And we'll be questioning some common assumptions about art, too.
which is important for you listening in this image-saturated world. Understanding what shapes your perception is key.
Yeah. Berger gives you tools, almost, to look more critically at everything you see. Ads, social media, whatever.
And to grasp the history behind our visual culture.
Okay, so let's jump into part 1. The nature of seeing in images. Berger starts with that big idea. Seeing first, word second.
It's primary, how we place ourselves in the world.
He uses the sunset example. It's great. We know, scientifically, the Earth is moving,
Right.
but what we see is the sun going down. And that knowledge, it doesn't quite override the visual experience, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It shows that tension, between our senses and our intellect. The visual event is powerful on its own.
And it's not just science. What we know or believe really colors how we see.
Uh-huh.
His example of fire is fascinating. In the Middle Ages, people widely believed in a literal hell.
So seeing flames must have felt terrifyingly different, like proof.
Exactly. Today, fire is still dangerous, obviously.
Sure.
But for many, that specific religious meaning isn't there anymore. Same flames, totally different interpretation based on belief.
The meaning isn't fixed in the fire itself. It depends on the cultural framework, the knowledge of the time.
And here's a crucial bit. Looking isn't passive.
No, it's an active choice.
We only really see what we choose to look at. And it's always about the relationship between things and, well, us.
Our vision is active. It positions us. We select. We relate. That's how meaning gets made through looking.
And it goes both ways. Berger stresses this. We realized pretty early on that we can be seen too.
That reciprocity of vision, it's fundamental, maybe even more fundamental than language.
Conversations are often trying to verbalize that very thing, how we each see the world differently.
Yeah, it underscores the social part of seeing. We're in this shared visual field, where others see us, it shapes us.
Okay, what about images themselves? Berger says they're all man-made.
Recreated sites, taken out of their original time and place.
And every single image, even a photo, it embodies a way of seeing.
Definitely. The photographer chooses the shot, the angle, the moment. It's their perspective.
And how we see that photo depends on our way of seeing too, like focusing on one person in a crowd for personal reasons.
That selection by the maker is huge. Images aren't neutral windows, they're constructed viewpoints. And we, as viewers, bring our own stuff to them.
He traces the history a bit too. Early images conjured the absent.
Then they evolved to show how things looked, how others saw them.
And eventually, the artist's own specific vision became part of the record, proof of how they saw it.
Which he links to this growing awareness of individuality, especially from the Renaissance on.
Yeah, it shows a shift from just representing absence to capturing subjective viewpoints too.
And Berger makes this bold claim. Images can be more direct testimony about the past than literature.
Richer, maybe more precise sometimes.
Yeah. Even imaginative art, he says, reveals how the artist experienced the visible world. It's immediate,
It offers a kind of direct connection, maybe bypassing some filters in writing.
However, and this is a big one, how we view art now is often tangled up in learned assumptions.
Ideas about beauty, truth, genius, civilization, all that stuff.
And Berger argues a lot of these are outdated. They actually mystify the past, cloud it up instead of making it clearer.
Right. Because history is always about now looking at then.
And if we're maybe scared of the present, we tend to distort the past, mystify it.
He says the past should inform action, not be some place we hide in.
Exactly. And this cultural mystification makes art seem remote, limits what we can learn. This idea of mystification is key.
So it's like art history sometimes obscures the real context, social, economic stuff.
Precisely. By focusing only on, say, aesthetics or genius in a vacuum, it strips the art of its real-world connections.
Okay, let's get into that more. Part 2. Mystification and the art of the past. Berger's uses a really specific example here.
Franz Hals, the paintings of the governors and governesses of an almshouse.
Right, 17th century Holland. And Hals himself, old, poor, relying on charity.
And the people he's painting are the administrators of that very charity.
Wow. So Hals the pauper painting the powerful people who control his support system.
Yeah, that dynamic is crucial. But it often gets glossed over in traditional art history.
Yeah, the art historian Berger quotes, acknowledges Hals's situation, but then says it's incorrect to see any criticism in the paintings.
Right. The focus shifts immediately to composition, the harmonious fusion of colors. This disinterested art appreciation.
Which Berger says obscures the real human drama.
Exactly. For him, that unforgettable contrast between the Baroque artist and his powerful subjects is the core of the paintings. He critiques just looking at form.
It's like they're trying to neutralize any social commentary.
Pretty much. Sanitizing the art, detaching it from reality and power.
And the art historian seems almost afraid of Hals's sharp characterizations, calls it seduction.
But Berger flips that. He says that seduction is the paintings working on us because we recognize similar social dynamics today.
So it's not just Hals's skill, it's that these power relationships are timeless, in a way.
Yes. Art can and should speak to our lives now. The fact we can read those dynamics means they still exist.
There's that story about one regent looking maybe drunk. Tilted hat, unfocused eyes.
Yeah. And the historian dismisses it. Cites fashion, maybe paralysis.
But Berger sees that as dodging the main point. Hals, the poor artist, observing the powerful.
It's a perfect example of mystification, deflecting from uncomfortable truths by focusing on technicalities.
So mystification explains away the obvious.
Often, yes. Berger says Hals was one of the first to capture these new types of people produced by capitalism, like Balzac did later in novels.
But that achievement gets reduced to his personal vision.
Right. Mystifying the social and economic reality that shaped everyone involved, artist and subject, detaching the art from history.
So how do we avoid it? Avoid mystification.
Berger says we have to look hard at our present relationship to the past, especially with images.
See our own time clearly.
Yeah, understand our own context, our own power structures. That helps us ask better questions about the art of the past, challenge the mystification.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move to part 3, the impact of reproduction. This feels huge today.
It is. Berger argues we see older art completely differently now because of technology, especially the camera.
This is central to his argument, isn't it? Mechanical reproduction changed everything.
Irrevocably. Detached art from its original setting created new ways to see it.
He talks about perspective first. Renaissance art onwards.
How it centers everything on the viewer's eye, like a lighthouse beam.
Creating this visual field arranged for the spectator. Like they're the center of the universe.
But lacking reciprocity. And the camera, Berger says, showed the contradiction in that. It's aimed at one viewer in one spot.
So that system, while realistic looking, put the viewer in this dominant, almost godlike position.
Which Berger critiques. He connects it to power structures of the time.
He even quotes Dziga Vertov.
I am an eye, a mechanical eye. Amazing manifesto.
Yeah, celebrating the camera's unique way of seeing. Constant movement, connecting anything, creating fresh perceptions.
It captures that revolutionary potential of the camera, moving beyond human vision limits, challenging old ways of seeing.
And the camera isolates moments, right? Fleeting appearances.
Which challenges the idea of timeless images, except maybe in paintings themselves.
Yeah.
What we see becomes relative to where and when we are, no single center.
And this shift influenced painting.
He argues it did. leading to things like Impressionism, focusing on the fugitive moment, and Cubism, trying to show all views at once.
So the camera capturing moments in different angles directly impacted how artists saw and painted reality.
Absolutely, a fundamental shift.
Okay, so building on that, how did the camera change how we see old paintings, pre-camera ones?
Well, originally they were part of their location, think frescoes and churches. Their uniqueness was tied to place.
Right, you gotta go there.
But reproduction, it destroys that uniqueness. Images get multiplied, fragmented, their meaning shifts when they travel to us, maybe on a screen in our living room.
So the original connection to place is lost.
Yeah.
The image gets detached, finds new context, meanings multiply.
Yeah. So the uniqueness of an original painting now, it becomes about being the original of a reproduction.
Ah. Its main meaning isn't just what it shows, but what it is. The authentic source.
Exactly. Its value shifts towards its physical existence, its history.
And that opens the door for more mystification.
Totally. The original's value gets tied to rarity, market price.
And then we equate that price with spiritual value.
Creating what Berger calls a bogus religiosity around art objects, like they're holy relics just because they survived.
It's a substitute then for the aura the original lost because it could be copied.
Yeah, trying to keep that perceived value and authority alive when the images are everywhere.
Think about going to a museum. That feeling of seeing the real thing, like Leonardo's Virgin of the Rocks.
Berger says dismissing that as naive is wrong because it fits with the whole expert culture focused on proving authenticity.
Like the National Gallery's detailed entry on that painting, all about proving it's genuine.
The focus on authentication, provenance, it's all about preserving the original's unique value against the flood of reproductions, reinforcing that special aura idea.
And it can get kind of crazy. He mentions Leonardo's cartoon, The Virgin and Child with St. Anne.
Right, its fame exploded when it might have been sold for a huge amount.
And suddenly it's behind bulletproof glass in a special room. Its importance linked directly to market value.
Which just reinforces that bogus religiosity. The money shapes how we're supposed to feel about it. Commodity value overshadows artistic quality.
So this whole reverence tied to money replaces what was lost through reproduction.
Berger argues yes. It's nostalgic, trying to hold on to values from an older, less democratic culture. If the image isn't unique, make the object mysteriously unique.
Trying to preserve those old hierarchies where only the elite had access.
Exactly. Reasserting cultural authority that reproduction undermined.
And who actually goes to museums anyway? Berger cites stats,
Showing a strong link between attendance and privileged education.
suggesting most people see museums as holding these relics of wealth belonging to the rich.
Which highlights the inequality. For many, museums feel separate from their lives.
So in this age of reproduction, the meaning of a painting isn't fixed anymore.
No, it becomes transmittable information. Detached, lacking inherent authority.
And when it's used, its meaning can change.
Completely. Reproduction lets an image be used for countless different purposes. Its meaning gets constructed in its new context.
Like isolating a detail turns an allegory into a portrait.
Or using a painting in a film gives the film authority.
Or adding text makes the image just illustrate the words.
Exactly. The original meaning can be totally transformed or subverted.
So reproduced paintings become like
Right.
reference points, meaning shifts depending on context.
Yeah. Any authority they keep is spread out across all their appearances. It's dispersed.
But even though images are everywhere, reproductions are often used to pretend art's authority hasn't changed.
Right. To justify other kinds of authority, make inequality seem okay, even noble.
Like the whole national cultural heritage idea, using art to glorify the current system.
Precisely. Despite the democratic potential, reproduction often gets co-opted by existing power structures.
But individuals can use them differently, like sticking postcards and photos on a pinboard.
Where everything has equal personal meaning, Berger even suggests these could replace museums.
That's provocative. It highlights how we can create our own meanings outside institutions.
But he's not saying originals have no value anymore.
No, not just awe at their survival. There's something else.
He talks about a silent stillness in original paintings, something different from just information.
It's in the material, closing the time gap, making it feel contemporary.
Yes, that direct link to the artist, the object's history, it allows a different kind of engagement. He quotes Cézanne trying to capture that immediacy.
But he warns, just sticking a picture next to your shopping list doesn't mean you understand it fully.
Right. Personal connections are fine, but deeper understanding needs context. Historical, cultural context.
So the real fight isn't innocence versus knowledge.
No, it's between a total approach connecting art to all of life and the esoteric approach of experts.
Experts, who might be serving nostalgia for a declining class, now challenged by corporations and the state.
That's his argument, a conflict between an inclusive view of art and a specialized, often exclusionary one that props up power.
Which leads to his big question. Who does the meaning of past art belong to?
Yeah, people who apply it to their lives, or a hierarchy of relic specialists.
It really challenges the authority of museums and experts pushing for a more democratic engagement. Who owns cultural meaning?
Historically, art was kept in special places, right? Caves, temples, palaces.
Set apart to exercise power, its authority tied to being exclusive.
But reproduction shattered that authority, took images out of those preserves.
Making them everywhere, ephemeral, available, like a language surrounding us, but without inherent power.
That's the shift. Mass reproduction changed their status fundamentally, integrated them into daily life, like language.
But most people don't grasp this change, because reproduction is often used to pretend everyone can now appreciate art like the elite did.
Which leads to disinterest, skepticism. The rhetoric of democracy hides the power dynamics.
And this is his hopeful note. If this new language of images was used differently,
It could give us new power. Define experiences words can't capture. Understand our history better. Become active agents.
wow, so this visual language could empower us, help us express things, understand our place in time.
That's the potential he sees, moving beyond just words.
So the art of the past, as it was, it's gone. Its authority is lost.
What we have now is this language of images.
And the key question is who uses it and why?
Which brings up copyright, media ownership, museum policies.
Things that seem like small professional issues, but Berger says the stakes are huge.
Because people cut off from their past, they're less free.
The whole art of the past has become political. He mentions Walter Benjamin here too.
Yes, drawing on Benjamin's work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, the control and meaning of this visual language are political. Access to it, shaping it, that's fundamental to freedom.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. Key takeaways. Seeing comes first, but perception is shaped by context, by what we know.
And reproduction has totally changed our relationship with art. It democratizes images, but also creates new ways to mystify and commodify them.
Art's old authority is shaky. So how we use and interpret this visual language now is critical. Seeing isn't passive. It's interpretation, shaped by history, society, economics.
Right. Reproduction gives access, but also brings challenges in figuring out meaning and power.
So a final thought for you listening? Think about the images flooding your world every day. Ads, social media, news.
How do Berger's ideas fit? Whose way of seeing is being presented? For what purpose?
What assumptions are being reinforced? What views might be hidden?
Yeah, consider the dominant visual stories. Whose stories get told, whose don't. How are images used to persuade, shape desires, control understanding?
Berger's ways of seeing. While it's incredibly rich, we've only skimmed the surface.
Definitely. Consider this deep dive just a starting point.
Yeah, an invitation to look more critically at everything visual around you. Maybe even look at your own pinboard, the images you choose, and think about what they say about your experience, your view of the world.